Here's your wrestling news for October 31st, 2021. And your headlines for this Halloween include: unused plans for Bray Wyatt before WWE release revealed. Wyatt deserved to be released by WWE due to backstage problems. Charlotte Flair responds to reports about title exchange controversy and backstage altercation. She's selfish. Charlotte Flair attacks SmackDown Superstar who steals the spotlight. New SmackDown Superstar says he'll job for Roman Reigns, and more. We are starting off today with Bray Wyatt, who was released by WWE in July of this year, cutting one of the most unique and charismatic superstars in recent history. Wyatt's reinvention into The Fiend in 2019 was a long overdue change for the former world champion, as he crossed being a demonic entity with being the host of the Firefly Funhouse. Tattoo artist Kyle Scarborough is one of the few responsible for The Fiend's mask, and on Twitter this week revealed some plans for the character which never made it to air. In a tweet, Scarborough explained that there were plans to bring the Firefly Funhouse alive, with real performances by the show's various characters, but Wyatt said he'd only do it if he played all the roles. Scarborough also shared some concept art showing what Wyatt's portrayal of Huskus the Pig would have looked like, but the idea was ultimately shelved. Wyatt's non-compete clause with WWE ended this week, and he's now free to work with any other promotion. And although the Firefly Funhouse is part of WWE, we're sure the former superstar has plenty more creative ideas in store. Wyatt's release came as a shock to the fans, as he'd been one of the company's most popular superstars in recent years, but since then, reports have come out about problems backstage. It's been reported that Wyatt had issues with creative and that he was considered too protective of his character, in addition to what the company considered weight problems for the former Universal Champion. When Ringside News asked about the reports of Wyatt being difficult to work with, a tenured source in WWE responded and immediately made it clear that what they said hadn't been affected by their status working for WWE. The source states, "Not being an apologist or a WWE defender, just telling you like it is. If you're running a business and Windham was on your payroll, you'd release him too. Between his backstage antics and the way he handled himself when making millions and millions while medically flagged, he really deserved to be released." This week, Wyatt, now Windham, was in Hollywood, fielding meetings for other projects after rejecting a deal with Impact Wrestling. Time will tell what the former WWE superstar does next in his career, and while fans may continue to miss The Fiend, those in WWE are apparently happy to see the back of the former world champion. Even after Wyatt was released, WWE continued pushing Alexa Bliss's demonic character, with many fans infuriated that the Fiend character had seemingly been handed to the former women's champion. Bliss hasn't been seen since Extreme Rules, and it's been rumored that she'll return as a much different character than the one fans have been seeing for the past year. In another tweet, Kyle Scarborough shared some concept art that WWE had in store for Bliss, which he said would have been a combination of mask and makeup. The partnership between Wyatt and Bliss ended at WrestleMania 37, where Bliss cost The Fiend his match against Randy Orton. But had that betrayal not happened, it's entirely possible that fans could have seen both Wyatt and Bliss don masks to channel their darker selves. In July, WWE returned to the road and brought fans back to arenas, with the July 16th SmackDown marking the company's first night back on tour. While that night's SmackDown was understandably packed, interest in WWE programming has fallen since then, and that was especially the case this week. According to data obtained by WrestleTix, this week's SmackDown in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania saw 4,180 fans fill the Mohegan Sun Arena, 89% of the estimated capacity of 4,682. The 41,080 figure means that this past Friday's show was the lowest attended SmackDown since WWE returned to the road, a record it took from the week prior's show in Wichita, Kansas, that sold 4,580 seats. It's worth noting that even if WWE had sold every seat available last Friday, it still would have been one of their lowest attended shows since returning. With AEW packing houses, it's even more concerning for WWE that they're struggling to sell seats to fans after over a year away, and we'll have to see how WWE tries to turn these attendance numbers around. One name possibly driving fans away from SmackDown is Charlotte Flair, who's more unpopular than ever after the recent title exchange controversy. Going off script, Flair is reportedly loathed by the women's division, And it's also reported that after a backstage altercation with Becky Lynch, Flair nearly had a fight with an irate Sonya Deville. Lots has been written about Flair as of late, and that's something the SmackDown Women's Champion knows, as in a tweet, she mocked fans who were going off reports which she considers to be rumors. As the most decorated female superstar in company history, WWE can't just fire the reigning SmackDown Women's Champion. And even though those closest to Flair want her to leave the company, Charlotte is seemingly here to stay and happy to keep trolling the fans. Charlotte's not just messing with fans on Twitter, but also in interviews, and that clearly was the case in her post-SmackDown segment with Kayla Braxton. Speaking about her match with Shotzi Blackheart, which saw Sasha Banks get involved, Flair praised Shotzi for the match before attacking the boss, which fans have leveled at her. Claiming that Banks wanted to steal the spotlight, Flair went on to call the six-time women's champion selfish, which have been criticisms of Flair herself, who's been virtually on top of WWE's women's division for over half a decade now. It's hard to say if Flair's comments about Banks were just to carry on their feud, or if it was another way to rile up fans following the title exchange controversy, but whatever the case, neither the fans nor Flair are moving on from what happened on last week's show. AEW news next, as it wasn't too long ago that Tony Khan said he was talking to Warner Media about making a streaming service for AEW programming, and we now have an idea of when that'll be. During a recent session of Ask Tony Live on ad-free shows, Tony Schiavone was asked about a possible AEW network and said he expects it to happen, and going by those he's spoken to, he expects it to be available by the end of 2022. Schiavone added that there were reports that AEW was eventually going to become part of the HBO Max library, but when Tony Khan was asked, he responded by saying HBO would need to come up with a lot of money, and said that AEW will get its own streaming service. If AEW does have its own streaming service next year, it'll come 8 years after the launch of the WWE Network, and with AEW releasing hours of programming every single week, fans will soon have one location to browse all that the company has to offer. And we're ending today with Top Dollar, who joined SmackDown in the recent draft along with the rest of Hit Row. With his social media beef with the Young Bucks and AEW's Max Caster, Dollar has made a name for himself already, and will be the leader of Hit Row from now on, replacing Isaiah Swerve Scott. Speaking on his Jobbing Out podcast, Dollar spoke about what a match with Roman Reigns would be like, saying fans who don't want to see the match don't understand the business. People on the internet be like, I want to see Top Dollar versus Roman Reigns. Then people will be like, yeah, but they're gonna job him out. I'm like, bro, I'll job for Roman Reigns. What the hell? Do you understand the business? Losing to the Tribal Chief would still be a big moment for Dollar's career, arguably the biggest he's had so far, and while that match hasn't happened yet, it could be the case down the line now that both men are on SmackDown. Well guys, that's our news for today. Please share your comments below. Also hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell icon to receive all notifications. And as always, thanks for watching.